But yeah, I'll just kind of start walking through it a little bit, and we'll see if anybody joins, and then we can kind of take it from there. But yeah, want to put together a nice comprehensive overview of what the knighthood is, the knighthood of purity specifically, and then really get into the alchemical process of it. To
Mm.
me, I feel that it's a very transformative process, especially if you take up the rules. It's one thing to kind of study the concepts and the ideas and maybe look through it, but when you really take up the practice of working through the rules, it really does change your personality. It is a transformation, and it really transforms you from um, that hard iron exterior and interior all the way to that soft, pliable, beautiful brilliance of gold. And so I just wanted to put together a little introduction for today to go through some of the process and kind of explain, what all this is about. I know that some of the people that'll be joining us are familiar with Sufism, might be from our order, and have some interest or even experience with the knighthood. And I know that others that'll be joining are probably not too too well versed on what a Sufi is or what Sufism is or anything else. So figured I'd just kind of start at the beginning here. I put together a little table of contents for this just to kind of see what we're walking through in this particular presentation. What is Sufism? I kind of go a little bit into that, and a lot of this comes directly from the Inayatiyya website and from their kind of formal explanations of who we are and what we do, and then a little introduction to the knighthood, a little overview of the chivalric rules, the 6 degrees of knighthood that
Mm.
exist, timeline to becoming a knight, and then I get in a little bit to the concepts of alchemy, the qualities of metal. Um, I found when I was putting this together, I had it complete, and then I was on one of the social media, I think Instagram or whatever, and I saw a post about alchemy, and it was those memes where it was like the photos with the captions and everything, and I ended up saving these couple memes because I thought they were very well versed. So I got the wisdom of the memes in there for us to kind of look at. And then a little overview of the iron and the copper rules, the silver and the golden rules, a little explanation of the crest, and then the last page has some links to some additional resources and things. So
Mm.
um, this will be no surprise to you or anything that you're not familiar with where you're at on the path at the moment. But I just want to put a little bit here about what Sufism is. The thing that I really love about this particular quote of Murshid's, this is one that we've heard for years. If anybody asks you what is Sufism, you may answer Sufism is the religion of the heart, the religion in which the most important thing is to seek God in the heart of humanity. And I think that's very fitting to this particular practice as well, because this is about how we can cultivate ourself to be better to humanity and to better serve humanity. When you think of knighthood, a knight was there to serve and to be of service and protection to the king, to the kingdom, to the people of the land. And I think that's what we're really trying to do is cultivate ourselves into these warrior figures and knightly figures that really go out and protect the heart of humanity. So um, this again comes right from the Inayatiyya website. I don't have to read it off verbatim here, but the heart is the wellspring of our deepest motivations, a container for love. The goal of Sufism is to develop the capacity of the heart, the capacity to hold all the complexities of life in a matrix of love, and to discover the divinity inherent in all of creation. And again, I think just these particular words really flow well with the activity of the knighthood, especially the goal of Sufism is to develop the capacity of the heart. Is that's really what this alchemical process of going through the rules and having this experience really does. It really just develops the capacity of the heart. so that we can discover that divine, essence that is inherent in all creation. I love also that this points out that Sufism is not a religion. I know at the beginning there it says, well, what is it? It's the religion of the heart. And paradoxically, Murshid will sometimes refer to something one way and then refer to it a little differently. But I love that it's not a religion in the sense of it's being a system of beliefs. And to me, I've always seen it as a path, a pathway to understanding our place in the universe, also understanding how we can personally unfold, how deeply connected and intertwined to God we are, and the fact that we're really not separate. We're all one, and we're all connected in that way. So I love the universality of Sufism and this path, and to me, that's what really helped draw me to it. So I'm hopeful that others that join this class will catch a little of that spirit, and understand it. I know a lot of times it's, I think, very poorly chosen expression of what Sufism is to just call it Islamic mysticism, or even the heart of Islam. A lot of times it's called that. And I think there's so much disarray in the world right now with what Islam is and what Islam isn't, and what it means to be a Muslim or not be a Muslim. There's unfortunately, I think it's one of the religions or isms that has been, its true meaning has been perverted by politics and by things that happen in the world. So I don't really want to touch too much on the Islamic part of it, but I do want to mention that I think a lot of times it unfortunately gets called Islamic mysticism, and it's much deeper than that, and it's much older than that, really. From my understanding and my studies over the years, Sufism is, the wisdom of Sufism, the actual message, the thread of truth that's handed down from teacher to student over centuries, goes far back, prior to Islam. And I actually have a book that says, was Jesus a Sufi? So a lot of
Nice.
scholars really feel that during that period of time when Jesus disappeared between 13 and 33, or somewhere around those ages, that he went and studied with some of these masters. And it's even said that the wise men that came to visit him in the manger were considered to be Sufis, or wandering dervishes of some sort. So, it is a wisdom tradition, and as we call it, in our order, and as I've named our center here, it's a path of spiritual liberty, and to have the freedom to not only free your soul and be liberated spiritually yourself, but then also to have the freedom to express that spirituality and to live that spiritual life, free of the confines of any religion. So I think that that's a really beautiful thing. It really resonates with me when I think of spiritual liberty. So that's why I indeed wanted to call us the SoCal Inayatiyya Center for Spiritual Liberty. I think adding that spiritual liberty aspect in there really opens up the pathway for people to be free to be who they are, and to express their spirituality in a healthy way, in a healthy space, and work it that way. So, and yeah, there's a few other little descriptors here, but that's kind of my little overview of Sufism. I really look at it as a pathway to the divine, much more than a religion or anything like that. Kind of jumping into the knighthood a little bit, I did want to explain a little bit of, who Hazrat Inayat Khan was, to some of the other people that may not know who Hazrat Inayat Khan was. And how I came to this path in the first place is I was working at a music store, and I had a friend that was friends with somebody in a whole different department that I didn't really talk to. And that friend had told her, hey, you should check out this book, The Music of Life by Hazrat Inayat Khan. And so she knew I was into spiritual books and all that kind of stuff. And there was a really great bookstore here in LA for a long time called the Bodhi Tree Bookstore. And so we went down to the Bodhi Tree after work, and she'd found the book, The Music of Life, that she was looking for. And then I found this beautiful orange book. My lighting's not so great here, but the mysticism of sound and music. And I read it on the spine, and I was like, oh, wow, that sounds really cool. That sounds like my kind of thing, you know, moving here to be an aspiring rock star. And I'm like looking at this cool music book. And when I flipped it over and I saw this picture of Murshid holding the Veena, I just immediately felt a connection. And I still to this day almost get teary-eyed when I look at this picture, because he's got the very piercing eyes in this picture, but it was like he was looking right at me saying, this is for you, you know. And I flipped it open, and the first thing that I read was, to attain spirituality is to realize that the whole universe is one symphony in which every individual is one note. And I stood in that bookstore like a brick had hit me in the head, and I just really didn't know what my note was. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, and this was the musician in me coming out at that moment too. You know, what is my note? Is it sharp? Is it flat? You know, I'm out here to be a rock star, and, you know, I'm playing this angry heavy metal music, which I love, but, you know, am I really lifting people up? Am I really giving people hope? Am I really finding the secrets to my own inner happiness by expressing things this way? And it really took me to task, and I ended up buying the book. And then within a few months, I realized he had a wealth of teachings, and who he was, and that he had brought this, not really even came to the West to bring this message. It was more to bring the music, you know, and he had come here and toured with his brothers and done some different things. And then by proxy, it just worked out to where he started having these lectures and sharing these teachings of Sufism in his path. And that took off, you know, and really changed his direction in life, to where eventually he gave up his music. He gave up what was most precious to him, because he felt this inner calling to share these teachings and to share truth and light. And so that's, you know, again, kind of wanted to give a little background on who Murshid is, and who, you know, and Murshid is just, again, the name for teacher or guide, mainly teacher. So a lot of times Hazrat Inayat Khan will be referred to, especially in these classes, as Murshid. It's just a respectful way of you know, honoring him as a teacher, as a leader, and a pillar that we look up to in this lineage. So through this process of all these different teachings and things that he did over the years, there were activities that were created as part of the Sufi order. So, you know, there's in various, you know, there's different lineages and different cultures and different places where, you know, the Sufi message came up and grew and flourished, and these accounted for the different orders that were put into place. And each of these orders were typically named after the kind of patron saint, or the one that kind of started that particular thread. So that's where we became the Inayatiyya. And, you know, before his passing over 100 years ago, he had planted the seed of this Knighthood of Purity by creating a couple of knights and 8 heralds. Heralds being the ones that take up the recitation of the rules. And so the knighthood is really a process of inner transformation. It's a process of really holding yourself accountable to your actions and to your words and your speech, and really taking time each day to look at one particular aspect of your character, your being, and finding a way to really refine that and fine-tune it. And that is this alchemical process of refinement. And I'll get into the alchemy side a little bit more. But basically it starts out with the Iron Herald, You start working on the iron rules and working through these rules for a period of time, and then you go on to the copper rules, and then the silver, and then the golden rules. And it's quite a process. It takes, over 1,600 days, so about 4 years and 140 days to go through the entire process. I myself am going through it for a second time right now, so I just started the 40th rule of the copper rules, so I'm at the very end of the copper rules, actually starting today. So when all 40 rules have been recited and practiced for 40 days each, the Golden Herald then is qualified to receive, upon invitation, the accolade of the Knight of Purity. And there is a ceremony, and there is a process to that ceremony of knighting, and you receive this beautiful sash. I'm wearing mine down here, but and then you tie the sash in a certain way to kind of symbolize that link. It's kind of tied almost like chain links, so that you have this link to the succession of knights that have come before you, and the what we call the silsila, being the chain of transmission, and the teacher before the teacher, and the teacher before that teacher, and so on, all the way back to the prophets. So in that, Hazrat Inayat Khan also expressed often a deep kinship with nature and the natural world, and he put out several nature meditations. We have another guest coming here. Beloved Karima, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just kind of going through. We're only a few pages into the presentation here. I just basically gave a little background on Sufism and what that is, and a little bit about Hazrat Inayat Khan. Karima is actually my Murid, and she's in Suluk right now. So she's getting very well versed in what Sufism is, and what Murshid's teachings are about, and things like that. So we won't have to catch you up there, but just kind of moving on to the next. Here we go. I got to go back to that page. All right. Again, I was kind of mentioning the chivalric rules. So the Karima, the knighthood, in case we haven't really spoken about this before, is one of the 7 activities of the Inayatiyya order. And what it is basically a real transformative process. It's a practice that you take up with these sets of rules. So I'm going to go through in detail the rules, but here's where I'm kind of introducing them for the first time today. These rules are really transformative alchemical processes that go in within the human spirit, within ourselves. It's a very transforming, practice that you take up. So essentially there's 4 sets of rules. There's the iron rules, there's the copper rules, the silver rules, and the golden rules. And each of those rules, those sets of rules, is 10 rules per set. So 40 rules total. What you do is you work with one rule. You start with the first iron rule, and you work with it for 40 days. And when I say work with it, it's essentially you're sitting down, you're conscious of it. You even start by saying my conscientious self, which I'll get into that in a moment. But you call out to yourself. You call out to your inner being, and you say the rule, and then you make that a part of your daily practice. So over those 40 days, you're reciting this rule to yourself in the morning, throughout your day. And you start to realize things in your life that really shift, because you'll read this rule, and I'll go into some of the ones in particular, but one that comes to mind when explaining all this is do not speak of another in their absence. So you might go to work, and Johnny over in the mailroom said something that was off-putting, and somebody else comes in and says, "Oh man, that Johnny, he's such a jerk. He's always talking about this and that," and then your tendency is to, "Oh yeah, Johnny did this to me last week," and blah blah blah, and then a few minutes later you might go back to your desk and go, "Ooh, wait a minute. Johnny wasn't in my presence, and I'm not supposed to speak of another in their absence," and so it makes you think, I caught myself. And then and that's why we do it for 40 days too. It's a redirection. You don't sit there and beat yourself up and start the whole process over. You just say, "You know what, I made a mistake here." And these rules, they're called rules. They're rules to live by, I guess is a good way to say it. I really look at them more as contemplations or inner prayers, even, because they're very sacred when you really look at what they are and you really break them open and you really think about what they are. But once you start to experience a couple of those moments, another one that was always a favorite of mine, especially when my daughter was younger, do not look down on one who looks up to you. I've always been in a lot of leadership roles and, sales manager and things like that too. And a lot of times it's easy to look down on your employees when they make mistakes or do something that just is so like just a dumb mistake. Why did you do that? It's easy to look down on them. But you got to remember that they look up to you and that you have to teach them and you have to show them and you have to be that example of what the right thing to do is. So, a lot of times, and I say this a lot. There was a gentleman, an older man, very elderly man named Joe Miller, that used to be part of the Theosophical Society up in San Francisco. And there's some videos of him out there, and I got sucked into watching his videos for a while. Just such a brilliant guy. He was a friend of the Sufis and did a lot with us up in the Bay Area. But he used to say, some things can't be taught, they have to be caught, so that's the way I've always tried to lead is, leading by example. And, sometimes you can explain something to somebody. So this is, again, back to that example of an employee or someone that looks up to you. You can explain something, and sometimes the explanation isn't enough. You have to show them, and if you're out in the field doing a sales call and, the person just keeps hitting the wall, and then you show them a different technique or a different tactic or a different way of approaching the situation, they're going to catch it. And so then it's not been taught, it's been caught. It's something that they've actually caught in the wild. They've seen it. Oh, that works. Wow. Okay, I'm going to do that next. And this is a lot of what this process is for us going through these rules. Is it makes you catch yourself and what you're doing to sabotage yourself throughout life and throughout the day and things like that. It really is training that mindset to become a spiritual warrior. So that's a big part of what these rules are all about. There's 6 degrees of knighthood. So starting out, each time you take up the practice, you take on the first set of rules, you become an Iron Herald. So the heralds are the ones that are, they're heralding that task. They're holding on to that space to be that. Oh, we got another one here coming in. Grand Rising, Chantel. Thanks for joining. So yes, we're just kind of going through right now. We just did a little bit of a little introduction into Sufism and kind of where the rules came from, who Hazrat Inayat Khan is, and so forth. I think you're probably pretty well versed on that, Chantel, as well. So, but I will send this presentation out and the video afterwards to everyone, so they can see the whole class. But thank you again for joining. I appreciate you coming through. I was just kind of getting into the 6 degrees of knighthood. And so we start out with the Iron Herald. The Iron Herald will work with the iron rules, which from my description here, these are my descriptions, can help to bend and shape the dense hardness and coldness of the interior of the practitioner. So if you think of iron is a very, it's pliable and it's bendable, but it is dense and it is cold, and it's this hard, cold, dense metal. And so you want to bend and shape that to where it can be usable and it can be put into a usable context. Then once you go through the 10 rules for the Iron Herald, you become eligible to be a Copper Herald. This is working with the copper rules, which are have a little bit more conductivity to it. So you think of copper being more electrical, having that kind of quality to it. It's used in a lot of conductivity in your homes and things like that, and different devices and things that we use. So it just has a different level of energy and a different level of refinement. And again, I'm going to go through the metals here a little bit more. And then you move on to the Silver Herald. Working with the silver rules helps to unfold a brighter and sharper understanding of our metal. Our metal being the METTLE, which is your conscious self. It's your inner strength, things like that. I'm going to get into metal a little bit more here as well from that perspective. So it's evolving and it's sculpting your environment as well. So a lot of this is about internal work, but what you find, especially I think when you get to the Silver Herald level, is how much your atmosphere changes, how much your environment changes because of your inner change. And then you start to see other people at this stage, you're seeing other people reacting to the change in you. And it really does mold and shape your environment and sculpt it in a little different way. Then you move there onto Golden Herald, which works with the golden rules and brings in now a very highly refined soft metal, right? And this is where the soul becomes highly refined and softened, and you find this brilliance of divine light that pours through it, this golden glow that you would find in real gold would be what you would now find within yourself. And then after that, once you've reached the Golden Herald and finished that whole process, then you are eligible to be knighted as a Knight of Purity. And so then that process happens. You have a knighting ceremony, and then if you so wish at that time or later time, there's no limit, time limit here, you're eligible to take up the whole practice once again. And at that level, you would achieve the level of Grand Master. So I did the rules and became a knight, I would say, maybe 5 years ago. And I completed everything. And I had a lot of other trainings and other things. I wanted to be a representative for the Inayatiyya order so that I could, run or lead or participate in a center and to, be a guide to students and things. So I had to really kind of set this aside for a few years and focus on some of those other trainings. But this last year, I took it back up, and today I started the 40th rule of the Copper rules. So I'm just about halfway through the time frame to get to Grandmaster. So, all right. So I just kind of went through the heralds, but I want to kind of go through the timeline a little bit. So if anyone chooses to take up this practice or has taken up this practice, this is essentially what you're looking at in terms of a timeline to become knighted. Each of the 4 stages of heralds take approximately 400 days to complete. There's one rule for 40 days times 10 rules for each metal. Knight of Purity, so altogether that would take all 4 stages. It takes approximately 4 years, 3-4 months-ish. On top of that, one is eligible then to be knighted as the Knight of Purity once you've completed those 4 stages. And then, as I mentioned, Grandmaster, upon taking on the role of the Knight of Purity, one is eligible to start the entire process over again to reach that level of Grandmaster. So another 1,600 days, so 32, I guess, all in all, if you want to kind of plow right through and do it all in one. I do kind of recommend taking that little pause and that little breather, and there are some other practices and things associated with the knighthood, like the emerald contemplations that we'll talk about in another class that can be done. But I wanted to break out a little bit more this concept of metal, alchemy, and then the characteristics of the metals. So metal, METTLE, As I mentioned, this is, a phrase I heard many years ago. I think it was a name of a Pink Floyd album or something is when I first heard about it. But, you hear the phrase, this is really going to test your mettle. That idea of testing your mettle is testing your ability to meet a challenge or persevere under demanding circumstances, determination or resolve. Another definition is substance or quality of temperament or spirit, especially as regards to honor, courage, fortitude, ardor, etc. It also relates to your disposition, usually in a good sense. So this is really the textbook definition of mettle, mettle, and I've made this association with testing our mettle through working with the metals, the metals, and I think that this is such a great way of really understanding what you're walking into, and what this is, the ability to meet a challenge or persevere under demanding circumstances. So as you go through these rules, and as I mentioned earlier in a few of the examples, and I'll mention a few more, the ability to meet a challenge is difficult, and you persevere under demanding circumstances. So you're out there in life, and one of these rules challenges you, and a circumstance in life comes across, and you're like, man, I'm really struggling with this one today. This is telling me to act this certain way, and I just my mind just doesn't want to go there, and this but you have this determination or resolve that is part of your mettle, and that's really helping you to look at the substance or quality of your temperament and your spirit, and how you can approach this with honor. You can honor your own feeling of discontentment to do this rule. That's a sense of honor too. Honor that and understand why you feel that and what it takes to compromise in order to take on that rule and take on that practice. And we call these rules, and there may be some that I haven't had this experience myself. I've definitely been challenged by them. I haven't had one that I'm like, no, I don't believe in that, and that's contradictory to my beliefs, and I'm not doing that. I haven't had any of that experience with these at all, and I don't think most people will. But there will be some challenging ones. There will be some that come up and really test your mettle. So I wanted to kind of give a little bit of a background on that aspect of mettle. Alchemy. So we've heard the term alchemy over the years used in a lot of different ways, and alchemy is a process of transformation, essentially. A lot of times you think of alchemy, you think of or even knighthood. You might think of Lord of the Rings, or some Hollywood version of these old men in a cave somewhere trying to turn iron into metal, or trying to transform some substance into a different substance. And although that is the essence of alchemy, this personification of it, I think, is really metaphorical, because it really is a process of inner transformation. And I think that's what alchemy has always been. And although someone may have struck gold from iron somewhere along the way, the real gold that you unravel, or that you transform these base metals into, is the soul. And the opening of your spirit, and the understanding of who you truly are, and what your power is, and what your ability is to transform and to change not only your life, but your surroundings and your environment. So alchemy is an ancient practice that combines philosophy and science, aiming to transform base metals into gold. It was also used to discover cures for disease and aimed at achieving immortality. So I wanted to touch upon that as well, because a lot of these rules, when you look at the ideology that you may have had before you took up that rule, it may have been a sickness, it may have been a disease, it may have been something that man, this is really a negative trait that I've just carried with me my whole life. And that rule can transform that. It can change that. It can really go through and make you mentally and spiritually and physically transform yourself from that hardened state into this more brilliant, divine essence of who you truly are. So that in itself brings the cure. Rumi says the cure is in the sickness, or the cure, the remedy is within the sickness. So a lot of times that's the case, and you have to kind of go through it to discover what it is that's causing this issue in your life, and aim towards achieving that immortality. And the immortality side of it too, this is a big thing in alchemy. These ancient wizards trying to achieve immortality. Really, it's understanding that we are immortal, and that we already are immortal. We're timeless. Life doesn't end once our outer garb falls away. Our spirit is everlasting and eternal, and always has been and always will be. So this understanding of the spirit and living from a more spiritual, soul-oriented life, you start to really connect with that immortal side of yourself. That's it's a real process. And, I've been really doing a lot of studying lately about the connection that we have with our imagination, and how our imagination can really tap into that immortal part of ourself and create our own reality in a much different way. It's not just the power of positive thinking or law of attraction or those types of things. And it's really about creating in your mind first the end result that you want to achieve in life, and really living from that end backwards, as opposed to always striving to reach and grab it. And ironically, we have a leadership training this weekend that a few of us had to pause for this class and that's Pirzia, Hazrat Inayat Khan's grandson, who's our peer of our order now, is actually talking a lot about this concept of immortality from one of his books. So the alchemical process is just so fascinating to me, and there's a lot of aspects of it that I could go into. I am going to talk about a few more things, but pardon me, wanted to jump over to the characteristics of metal. So I did talk about these metals a little bit, but I kind of wanted to go through a little bit more. I looked up some definitions of some of these metals. Iron is considered a transition metal, which I think is really interesting, because you're starting a process of transitioning from this denser self to this, higher quality self through this whole process. So iron is a transition metal, and it's strong, but it's very versatile, and it's also very shapeable. So again, when you think of a piece of iron, it is cold, it's hard, it's dense, sometimes it's rough. Iron isn't something, you think of iron, you think of like a rebar that you would see in a building or something like that. An iron bar is going to be rough. It's not a real smooth metal, but it is, and it's very strong. It's very dense, but also very versatile and very shapeable. So it's allowing for that transition to begin within yourself when you start to work through these iron rules. Copper has more electrical and thermal conductivity to it, so it's got a conduit to it that can conduct electricity. We have copper wiring in our homes, and different devices and things like that use copper to transmit electrical energy. And then thermal conductivity too, so a certain level of warmth. So when you think of your heart, a cold heart or a cold person or a cold soul or something, having this conductivity of copper, which can actually house a larger thermal capacity, it allows for more warmth in our heart, in our life, in our words, our speech, things like that. And it's much more malleable, so it's easier to work with than iron. Iron is shapeable and versatile, but it's, bending in certain things where copper can be refined, it can be shaved, it can be, put into, a ball, it can be put into a square, it can be, ground down into wire, things of that nature. So it's very malleable, and it's also resistant to corrosion. So when you get into this copper stage of these rules, you've created a certain resistance to corrosive behavior and corrosive speech, and you're starting to get to a point where a lot of the toxicity that comes at you from the world doesn't have that much of an effect on you, because you've built this resistance to this corrosive, mindset and attitude. So I really think that copper really really embodies that spirit of this warmth and this electricity and this malleability, and then the resistance to corrosion that comes in at that stage. I think is really a really powerful part of the rules. Silver is a soft, lustrous white metal, and also has very strong electric and thermal conductivity. I don't know if this isn't financial advice, but I don't know if you've looked at silver lately. If you follow the money markets at all, silver for the longest period of time has been silver and gold have been considered a store of value. So our paper money, they just print it. It's just numbers on a computer screen. We need more. They just go print it. It has no value. There's nothing backing it except the paper that it's written on. But silver and gold have always been considered a store of value. Now, I started looking at silver as a investment opportunity back probably 2020 during COVID, when we had a lot of time on our hands, and and I really credit my wife more than myself for the research and things into this. But silver was sitting at around $20 an ounce, and this last week, silver just went to $120 an ounce. So as the silver rises in value and gold rises in value, our paper dollar is getting less and less value. So our dollar is quickly crashing. So if you can find some silver, it might be a good time to pick a little bit up. Copper as well. Again, not financial advice, but just wanted to say that because I wanted to show about the store of value that comes with silver and gold. They're beautiful. They're used in so many things. Silver has such a undervalued value for so long. So why did it sit at $20 for a long time if it's worth $120 now? And how much more is it worth than what it's being suppressed to at the moment? Well, it's used in so many things. Medical equipment, surgical equipment, our computers, every iPhone, every Android, every computer, tablet, device has silver in it. Silver is part of this conductive metal, the alloy that goes into it. And so silver has been suppressed. It has this kind of suppressed value. And as you kind of start to see the true value and use case of silver, as you will with the silver rules, you start to see the true value of it start to unfold. And then you see, again, your true value. So you look at yourself as, maybe you looked at yourself as, man, I'm only worth $20 an ounce. Well, you're worth hundreds, once you actually go through this unfoldment and this process, and you start to see your own true value come through. So I wanted to kind of make that little correlation with the monetary side of it as well, because we're seeing that happen in real time right now in the world. So if you look at the money markets and the silver and the gold a little bit now, and see if you can make that same correlation or relation to the rules if you're working with those. But the value that comes through, and the suppressed value that we've seen in that arena, I think you're going to really feel that same experience when you go through these rules, because you really are bringing out a value in yourself that was hidden and that was suppressed for a long time. So just wanted to make that correlation there. Moving on to gold. Gold is very dense. It's also very soft and malleable. So it's dense, it's hard, but if it's heated up to a certain extent, it's very easy to move. It's very easy to melt. It's very easy to work with, and to it being malleable, it can be molded into just about anything that you want to mold it into. It's highly resistant to corrosion, much like copper and silver, and it is one of the most valuable metals. So, you go back to ancient times, gold was always the thing, everybody talked about gold and the value of gold and the different, things that the treasures and the kingdoms were always, measured in gold and gems and things like that. So, definitely one of the most valuable metals. And once you reach this stage within the rules, you will find that, there is a beautiful, refined state that comes through you that will very much resemble gold. Okay, so one of the great teachers of our current age is the meme. So we go on all these different websites and social media platforms, and every once in a while you'll come across these memes, which are just a photo with a saying kind of superimposed on it. So the other day I was working on this process and or this presentation rather, and I came across these memes on Instagram, and I thought that they were very fitting for kind of explaining what an alchemist is and what an alchemist does, and how that relates to these rules. So the alchemist understands that repetition alters the mind. So this goes back to a little bit of what I touched on earlier about the imagination and tapping into your immortality. When you really look at repeating something, it becomes habit. They say it takes 21 days to create a habit or break a habit. But the more that you understand and repeat something, the more it alters the state of mind. And when you're altering your state of mind, you're changing your environment because you're creating your environment with your mind. Your mental energy is actually creating your world. And that's another whole lesson. But the alchemist understands that repetition alters the mind. So this is an alchemical process. Each one of these rules you do for 40 days. And there's a reason you do it for 40 days, because that repetition changes the chemistry of your mind. It changes, it rewires things. It creates different neural pathways that trigger things in your mind a lot quicker. The conductivity gets a lot better because you're connecting the heart with the head. And as you open your heart to these rules and you do them, and you mentally and emotionally and spiritually say them and work through them each day, that repetition really alters the mind. And if the alchemist needs to be confident, they repeat confidence through their thoughts, emotions, and actions until confidence is truly theirs. So confidence is the word they're used there, but this could be, a myriad of different words that could be put in there in place of that. The alchemist, just by repeating these processes, you become more confident in your ability to do those things and to be that way and to really embody that rule. 2 or 3 days into a rule, you might be like, I don't know how I'm going to get through 40 days of this one, but then by the 7th day or the 10th day, you're like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see a little refinement here. This is kind of getting me where I need to be. So it instills that quiet confidence that helps you push through to the end. So I thought this, again, very, very fitting meme. They do not hold themselves to being a singular character, but rather embrace the ability to become whoever the path in front of them may require. This is a great one because that's what these rules do. Each day, each rule is about creating a different person within yourself. It really is about changing something in yourself. And you might, look, there might be some rules that you already embrace that quality and you have no issue with that. I have some of those that, they're real easy for me because, that's just my nature. That's who I am. But you're not a singular person in terms of you only have one quality in yourself and that's it. I'm nice. Okay, great. You're nice. Anything else? No, I'm nice. There's more levels of being nice, and there's reasons why you're nice, and there's reasons why it's hard for you to be not nice and things like that. So there's all these different levels of character, and this really is what this whole process is it's transforming your character, your metal. It's transforming that character into something much more refined. The path requires you to be different and to see things differently and to approach things differently and not be a singular, train of thought. So I thought this one was very fitting as well. And then lastly, this does not mean that they are inauthentic. Quite the opposite. Change is the most authentic thing in reality. Remaining the same and becoming stagnant always leads to difficulty and resistance. Suffer to change or suffer in a loop. And so many of us suffer in a loop. We create these ideologies or these mindsets, or we've been programmed that way through life by our parents or religion or school or whatever the case may be. You'll find I'm a big conspiracy theorist. So I do feel that a lot of us have been programmed over the years, and that this is about change. The whole process of this whole alchemical process is about change. And so there's nothing inauthentic about changing your viewpoint or changing things. I even said at the beginning when I was talking about, Sufism, Murshid, at the beginning, I did a quote where he says, Sufism is the religion of the heart. And then a little farther down, he says, Sufism is not a religion. So there are these contradictory elements sometimes that you have to walk through in order to find which is right for that particular situation. And so you will find that what is true in one moment might not be true in another moment. And what is a part of your being and your element and who you are and what your experience is now might not be the same later because of that refinement and because of that change. So you got to suffer a little bit to change, or you suffer staying in this loop. So I really like these memes. I thought they were good, so I was glad that I got to include those. I know we're kind of getting close to the top of the hour here, so I don't want to get too long-winded here with some of these, but I did want to just introduce the rules briefly and kind of walk through. So again, when you start out, your first thing is you're going to say, my conscientious self. And this is something that you repeat before you go into the first rule. When I send this out, if you click on that little highlighted underlined word there, it will take you to Wikipedia where you can see a full assertion of what that means in terms of that. But I put a little highlight at the bottom. It's a personality trait of being responsible, careful, or diligent. Conscientiousness implies a desire to do a task well and to take obligations to others seriously. So I don't always agree with Wikipedia. I liked Webster's dictionary back in the day a little more, but I used to always say, my friend Webster says, and people would be like, who are you talking about? But Webster's dictionary was a great one. But Wikipedia kind of hit it out of the park here with this as it relates to these particular rules, because it is a personality trait of being responsible, careful, and diligent. And it does imply a desire to do your task well and take the obligations to others seriously. And that's a big part of what these are. So just kind of walking through real quick, the iron rules. Make no false claims. So this is a good one. I struggled with this a little bit when I was a very egocentric rock star wannabe. You can make a lot of false claims about where you're at in your level of success and things like that to look cool. So that takes you to task. Speak not against others in their absence. I mentioned that earlier. That's a very much a struggle when you're at work sometimes and somebody brings up old John in the mailroom, and you're like, oh yeah, John, that sucker, you know what he did to me one day? So you catch yourself throughout these processes. Do not take advantage of a person's ignorance, a very important one. Do not boast of your good deeds. Do not claim that which belongs to another. Do not reproach others, making them firm in their faults. a lot of times I think that one ties in a lot with criticism. You can criticize somebody and it just kind of further ingrains in them their fault, when you could find maybe a more tactful way to bring that to their attention. Do not spare yourself in the work which you must accomplish. Man, that's an important one, and I think that can be looked at in so many different aspects. And don't when you hit this one, don't just think of it in terms of work, like your job, but what is the work of your soul? What is your life's purpose? And what don't spare yourself in the work which you must accomplish. It says you, not what your boss wants you to accomplish. So just wanted to give a little thought on that one. Render your services faithfully to all who require them. Again, that's a big part of what this path is all about, is being of service to others. Seek not profit by putting someone in straits, and harm no one for your own benefit. So these are a couple of all of the silver rules there. Let me gotta move this little window out of the way here. The copper rules. Consider your responsibility sacred. Again, a very, very important one, and one that really will take you to task a little bit when you think about your responsibilities. Sometimes we just do it, and we just do what we're responsible to do, and sometimes we do it very begrudgingly. But if you treat it as sacred, then you won't begrudge it so much. It'll become a part of your process. Be polite to all. That can be a tough one some days. That could be a real hard one. Do nothing which makes your conscience feel guilty. This one will definitely tap at you a little bit. Extend your help willingly to those in need. Do not look down upon the one who looks up to you. That one is very good for parents and for people in leadership roles and that have employees and things like that. Judge not another by your own law. I think this one fits our day and age so well, as we have so much political divide and so many different ideologies in the world right now. And we see so much people judging another by their own law. So this one really challenging, I think, for this day and age. Bear no malice against your worst enemy. That was one of the ones that was kind of easy for me. I don't really have too many enemies out there. So influence no one to do wrong. Be prejudiced against no one, and prove trustworthy in all your dealings. So those are the iron and the copper rules. Real quickly, the silver rules. Consider duty as sacred as religion. Use tact on all occasions. Place people rightly in your estimation. Be no more to anyone than you are expected to be. This one I absolutely love, and this one helped me through a lot of situations, especially related to work and being taken advantage of, because I got a big heart and I do a lot of things for people for no money and no desire to get anything back. But then after a while, you're kind of like, you know what, I'm doing a lot and I'm not getting paid for it. So you learn that's on you. Try to be no more to anyone than you're expected to be. Really good rule right there. Have regard for the feelings of every soul. Do not challenge anyone who is not your equal. Do not make a show of your generosity. That can be a tough one sometimes too. Do not ask a favor of those who will not grant it to you. So this is an interesting point too, because if you know somebody isn't inclined to help you or to work through something with you, then maybe it's just not the right person to ask. So you have to recognize that. So this is, again, building your discernment and kind of being able to foresee how certain things may come about from that rule. Let's see. Meet your shortcomings with a sword of self-respect. Let not your spirit be humbled in adversity. And then moving to the golden rules, keep to your principles in prosperity as well as in adversity. Be firm in faith through life's tests and trials. Oh, I think I may have bunched those together. Guard the secrets of friends as your most sacred trust. Observe constancy and love. Break not your word of honor, whatever may befall. Meet the world with smiles in all occasions of life. When you possess something, think of the one who does not possess it. This one, also a very, very powerful one, especially in our day and age with homelessness being what it is in LA and around California. Taking a moment to think about that person and sending them well wish. You might not have money to give them, but you can give them what you have, which is a caring, kind thought, and hoping that they find the resources and the means that they need to survive and get through the day. Uphold your honor at any cost. Hold your ideal high in all circumstances, and do not neglect those who depend upon you. So these are the rules in a nutshell, and kind of what they embody and what they speak of. The knighthood does have this crest. The crest, any good knighthood or lineage has a crest. So just breaking out this a little bit, the crest, you'll see here has the shield. It has the helmet. So dealing a lot with the head and the heart and how these two are protected through this process. You'll see at the top the heart and wings, which is a thematic symbol all throughout Sufism, where the two wings of the heart, I think Murshid says, are indifference and independence. So you have the independence and the indifference on the other side that lift up the heart and hold it up. So the heart and wings are, again, a very big symbol in Sufism, and especially in this particular lineage. And these two sitting at the crown of the head, so kind of there in the crown center, opening up the crown to that essence of the heart in its full spread, I guess, of wings out. And then the shield there, you'll see that it has the wings, heart and wings. The wings kind of come up and fold another heart, and that heart is much more over the heart center, which is known as the seer. And you'll see it has a half moon or a crescent moon with a star above it. Again, this is a symbol you'll see a lot in Islam, Islamic cultures, the different parts of the Middle East. And what that heart and the star really represent is a receptive heart. So the crescent moon there is the open, receptive heart. It's like a cup ready to receive the divine light that comes from the star of the heavens. So the star is the light that comes down into the heart that's being received by that receptive moon. So the star and the moon, that's what those represent. And then at the bottom, you'll see there it says liberté. And liberté is the French word for liberty. Again, our particular spiritual path is a path of spiritual liberty. It's about freeing the spirit. It's about being free to be who you are spiritually in all its capacity, to really live from that divine place in your heart and your life, and then to also have the freedom of religion and the freedom to be who you are spiritually. And this being a universal path, it's not tied to any one religion. So it's free of all that. And so you can be a Christian Sufi, you can be a Muslim Sufi, you can be a Hindu Sufi, you can be an Amish Sufi. It really doesn't matter, because Sufism is the path that we walk. And whatever your inclination is to any particular religion or spiritual path, you have the liberty to be that as part of this path. And this particular iteration, liberté, being French, so where this came from and why I think it's been attached to this crest is, Murshid Inayat Khan lived in France for a while. His dwelling there in Suresnes, known as Fazl Manzil, which is the House of Blessing, is where he lived with his family for many years, and it's been passed on to the family. And I know that Pir Vilayat, his son, lived there for some time, and Pirzia has been there, and they still do a lot of camps and summer camps and things like that. But his Hazrat Inayat Khan's daughter, Noor Nisa, this will be a whole class. I'm going to do a whole class on Noor Nisa because she's such an amazing soul. But she, for lack of, I don't want to get too long into this, but she was a telegraph operator during the war, one of the world wars, I think, World War II, with the Nazi invasions, and the Nazis were coming into occupied France, and she and her brother Pir Vilayat, they both decided that they could, that they needed to fight for what was right and fight for the liberty of their country. And he went on to be a minesweeper in the Navy, I believe, or one of the factions of the military that would sweep the ocean for mines and things like that. And she became a telegraph operator, and she ended up, her whole, her faction, her group, was called out of their area and called off duty and told to leave and exit because it wasn't safe for them to be there anymore. And she refused to leave, and she persisted and stayed in that dangerous environment for several months, eluding capture, and was able to deliver some really key intelligence that really helped the resistance to overcome that threat. And unfortunately, she was eventually captured. She was taken to Dachau, a concentration camp, where eventually she was shot. And her last word was "Liberté." So that's where this come from. I am going to do a whole class on her because she's a fascinating person, and her spirit and her resilience and her story is definitely something that is made of legend. And so she is a knightess, a knight in the Knighthood of Purity, and definitely a big part of this lineage. So that's where that came from on the crest. So I just wanted to share that. Okay, well, we've really kind of reached the end of today's class. I just really wanted to give an overview. This will be a continuing course. I'm going to do this once a month. I am flexible on times and days and things like that. Just figured a Saturday would work. I had some friends from the East Coast that were going to show up, but they're not here. So we do have some flexibility. We can move these things around a little bit if we need to. But I wanted to just give a nice little overview of the alchemy of knighthood, what the alchemical process is and what the transformation is and all of that. You don't have to be taking up these rules at the moment. If you have other things going on and you're not a part of the rules at the moment, that's okay. You can still be part of this course. You can we will have some open discussion about it because I think a lot of people that are doing the rules, will have experiences that they can share. But I think this course is going to be a lot about the alchemy side of it, and it's about the transformation and the change that comes from it. And the rules are going to be used as kind of a center point or a focal point for now. If I find that, over time, a lot of people are doing the rules and taking up the rules, then, we can turn it a lot more into a discussion period and things like that, where we can kind of really share our experience. And I want that to be a part of this as well. But just wanted to give a nice overview today. So I really appreciate everyone that came today for joining in this. And I will share this recording. I'll share this this presentation, and at the end here, these are all links. So when you get the presentation, you can click on any one of these links and it'll take you to some different resources. The Emerald Contemplations are another set of contemplations that can be done that are more geared towards nature and being a stewardship to the land and things like that. There's a complete set of the rules for download. I find it handy to have that on my phone as well. There's also a complete set of rules in different languages. So if you have friends and people from different regions that want to take up the rules, there's those resources. There's some commentaries on the rules from Pir Zia. So again, Hazrat Inayat Khan's grandson, who is now the current leader of the Inayatiyya order, gives some really great commentary on all these rules and really explains in detail what you can kind of expect from the unfoldment that comes from each of these. Commentary in various languages as well. Always like to have those resources there. There's some other knighthood resources that you can click on there. And then for knights is some other reading material and some other things that, kind of supplement alongside of this. And then most recently, they put together a 40 Rules Knighthood of Purity app. So I know this is available right now on iPhone, and I think the Android version should be rolling out in the next week or so. But it's just 40 rules. I think it's the 40 rules of knighthood is what it's called. But if you click on that link, it'll take you to it. And that's really great because it just brings it up on your phone. Every day you get a reminder. Hey, this is your rule for the day. When you're done contemplating it, you just tap it and then it goes to the next day. And then you get the reminder each day. So it makes it really, really good to stay on task. So that's it. I know I went a little over on time here, but appreciate everyone taking the time to join this morning. And I wish you a very happy and healthy week. And we'll send all this stuff out to you over the next couple of days.